Hi folks, I'm back. It's been a while since I've done one of these live streams, but what I'm looking to do today is something that's been on my to-do list for a very long time now. Way back in the day, going back to years and years ago with my blog, I was originally, the blog itself was hosted with WordPress, and it was built with WordPress using just like a blogging template from WordPress, and that was hosted on Azure App Service as a web app. I had an issue with that. It was kind of hard to scale it up as the traffic grew to my site, but also I had this thing where the database got deleted and I lost like my whole website, my whole blog. So I managed to get a backup of that, and I made a move to the way people typically do blogs these days is that using a static site generator. So what I'm using is Hexo, which is a JavaScript-based site generator. And so all my blog posts are actually just written using Markdown, and I can load that up here. I can look at the source of all my blog posts. They're just Markdown files, and when I want to generate the site itself, I just, from the command line, can do hexo generate. Generates the site for me, and I guess there were no files changed since the last time I did that, but what that does is generates this public folder here, which if I go look in Explorer, we can see is, okay, so there's the public, there's an index.html, there's web config that I'm going to have to remove from there if I move this the way I plan to, but it's basically just, it's all static content, right? So there's a little bit of JavaScript, but mostly it's files that are just served out. So if I go to Archives 2020 this month, here's a file an index.html that is just the file for that current blog post, or for the archives, and then the actual blog posts are down in here, I believe. So here's my latest blog post deploying a static site to Azure using the azcli.aspx, which is kind of funny because this is a static generated site. But if I go back to even before my site was a WordPress site, it was also, before that it was hosted on Geeks with Blogs, which was written in Asp.Net. So in order to not break all the links for my old blog posts, I've kind of carried over the naming convention for my blog posts as I go. So it's kind of funny, you go to my blogs, individual blogs, and it looks like I'm on an Asp.NET site, but it's actually just a statically generated site using Hexo, which is Node.js base. Kind of funny. But long story short, what I'd like to do today is, I don't need to be on app service for this. It's really just static files on a disk. So what I would like to do is, if we look at the last blog post I did here, where we do static site hosting on Azure using a storage account and to actually store the files, and then we put a CDN in front of it. So that's what I'd like to set up today, and we'll see how far we get. There's a bunch of things that I need to configure to make this work. One of those is, again, going back in the day, there are actually a bunch of rewrite rules in this web.config that we're probably gonna need to write some custom rules in the CDN to make that work. But if we, actually it mostly looks like it's just on the RSS feed. We want to rewrite if somebody looks for a URL called just feed, that we want to point them to this atom.xml. I don't know how many people still use that, but we'll try to still point them there. And then I had one, I guess, redirect on a file that I must have renamed at one point, which is kind of interesting. But we can do that with the CDN. We can set up rules. So let's just get started, and we'll see if we can get the infrastructure set up for this, see if we can get the blog deployed there, and then we'll see how far we get in terms of doing setting up the DNS rules and the enabling HTTPS on that CDN endpoint. Okay, so to do this, we're going to use my new favorite way of interacting with Azure resources, which is the AZCLI. If you want to install the Azure CLI, you can come in here and there's links to download for whatever your platform happens to be. I'm on Windows and I already have it installed here, so I'm just going to do an AZ login to make sure that I'm actually logged in. And that just takes you through the usual Azure login process. And when I close this, it will prompt me and tell me that I am logged in, which I realize is going to show some subscription IDs that I maybe don't want to show. So I'm actually just going to close this window, and how do I move this one? That's okay. Okay, now I'm just going to make sure that I have the right subscription selected, which I can do using, I believe I included that in my blog post. Yes. Okay, so just again making sure that I have the right subscription selected here. Which you can't see, but I'll bring this back to the screen in a second here. Okay, all set. So first thing I'm going to do is create a new resource group for this. And if I look at my Azure portal, I just want to see what resource groups I actually have today. So I have a resource group called Dave Paquette blog that has a bunch of different stuff in it here. I am going to, there's a storage account in there. I actually don't know what that's used for. Web jobs, and let's encrypt, right. Okay. Hardest thing with computer science and software development, naming things. I'm trying to decide if I should just use this current resource group, if I should create a new one, if I should use the existing Dave Paquette storage account. I feel like I want to create all new stuff here, so I'm just going to do that. And I'm just going to call it Dave Paquette is going to be the resource group instead of Dave Paquette blog. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to create a resource group. We do that by just doing az group create name Dave Paquette. And then we have to give it a location. So which location do we want? I want to say that this is going to be West US 2 is kind of my closest one. There's this site I use, Azure Latency Test, which is pretty cool because it'll do these pings to the different the different regions and tell you which one is effectively the closest to you. So for me, it looks like West US 2 is probably the closest, so that's what I'm going to use. Doesn't really matter because I'm going to put a CDN in front of these resources, so it's going to be fast for everyone anyway because, yeah, there we go. Because the CDN will take care of delivering the assets to people and pushing out to the edge. Okay, we created the resource group. Now there's this thing with the Azure CLI that allows you to just set defaults so that you don't have to keep passing in the resource group parameter with every command that you pass it. So I'm just going to do that now. I'm going to say my group is Dave Paquette. My default group is Dave Paquette, and then it'll just automatically put that for all my commands. And then likewise, I'm going to set the location to West US. So that's az configure -d location equals West US 2. Next up, we create a storage account. So I'm going to call this one Dave Paquette blog content. That might be too long. There's a max length on storage account names, but I'm going to give that a try. It'll tell me right away if it's too long. That will create a Dave Paquette blog content resource or storage account inside that resource group that we just created. I'm going to flip over to the portal here and we'll refresh this. And we'll just kind of follow along here and see. I'll keep refreshing things here, and we can kind of see as resources get created, they should show up in the UI in theory in the portal. Might require a forced refresh every once in a while. Okay, the storage account is created. Oddly, we are not seeing it here yet. Confirm that it created that in the Dave Paquette resource group. It did. Eventual consistency. Refresh. Okay, well, we'll come back to that in a minute. I'm sure it's there because this told me it was created. The next thing that we need to do is actually enable the static site hosting for this storage account. So we do that. This is a funny thing that I often try to use infrastructure as code type solutions, something like Terraform or ARM templates when I'm creating resources. And this was a thing that kind of I got stuck on with that, is that there's actually no way to enable static site hosting for a storage account through ARM templates or Terraform for that matter. Not like you have to do it through a command, which is kind of weird. Okay, so here I just need to give it I'm telling it I'm updating a property of the storage account, which I'd call Dave Paquette blog content. I'm enabling static site websites, and then I'm telling it if a document isn't found, send them to 404.html, and I want my root index.html to be my root index document. Okay, that's created. Let's see what the portal thinks of that, if it's caught up to the rest of the world yet. Well, that is odd. It really doesn't want to show me my resources today. There's the storage account. It is in fact created and exists inside that resource group. There it is. Weird caching stuff probably in the portal. Okay, so what that ended up doing was creating this this container in here, blob container called $web. And it's empty right now because we haven't sent anything there. But what it also did was enable this static websites thing so that I can actually just go to this URL and then it's going to serve out the content of whatever's in that web container. So the next thing is to actually take my blog, the contents of my blog, and upload it to that location. That's really easy to do. So again, we can use the AZ CLI here. We can go add AZ storage blob, upload batch, give it the account name, and then the folder that I want to upload. So in my case here, this is, again, Dave Paquette blog content. And the source is not build this time, it's the public folder, and I want to send that to the $web container. then we just wait for that to upload. There's some 1,300 files. It actually seems to go reasonably quick. And if I come into the portal now, in theory, we should eventually see some content flowing through here. There's some files coming in. So, and the index HTML is already there. So actually, if I go to that URL now that we saw in the static website piece, we should see my blog. There it is. Cool. And just waiting for more of it to upload, but I wanted to test that, yes, archives worked, and I can go to like specific folders. That all seems to be working. That is not working. But that might just be that the file isn't there yet, I'm hoping. No. This actually looks like maybe my site didn't render properly. I might have an issue with the version of Node.js that I'm using on this machine. This isn't usually the one that I do my blogging from. So I'm going to go back and look at that. It looks like, to me, like the contents of the HTML are incorrect. Which is odd though, because the root stuff is okay here. But we'll come back to that. That's not really the problem I'm trying to solve today. We can verify that later. What we're going to do once this is done uploading is the next step of that is we're going to put a Cdn profile and endpoint in front of this. When we do that, just to optimize the delivery of the content, with the Cdn, there'll be endpoints all over the globe and closer to the people who are actually consuming the pages and visiting the website. Okay, it's done. So that actually didn't take too long to upload. So yeah, the Cdn is going to push the content closer to the users who are actually visiting the site, and will also allow us to, does a bunch of other optimization on the delivery of the content, does some, enables HTTP2 by default. It does compression and caching of the assets and all these good things that we want to make the website as fast as possible. But it also allows us to configure SSL on a custom domain, which we can't do on just the static site hosting. Because I actually want this to be a www.davepaquette.com. So we'll go ahead and create a CDN profile now. We need the profile first. There's a bunch of different types of CDNs within Azure. There's a Verizon one and an Akamai and another premium one. There's like 4 different ones that you can pick from. I'm just going to use the standard Microsoft because that'll be good enough for what I'm trying to do here. And I'm just going to call that Dave Paquette blog as the CDN. WestUS is not available. Okay, so I'm probably going to have to do that in, I'm just going to guess that the location of the is going to be WestUS instead. Yeah, they in the error message actually told us the locations that are allowed. So that looks fine. And then once that's done, we're going to create a profile. And for this one, I'm going to just edit that before I paste it into the console. So here, I'm going to give it the name Dave Paquette blog. The profile name was Dave Paquette blog. The origin that we pass in is that URL here. This guy here without the protocol in the front. So that guy. And then we also have to give it an origin header. And we definitely want to enable compression on those assets because just optimizes that delivery a little more. And okay, so the profile is created. Now we create the endpoint. which I again need to override the location. I guess I should have just went with West US on this thing, on the whole resource group, but it doesn't really matter, I don't think. Okay, so that's going, and let's go take a look at that in the portal just to see what's going on. Again, this is being silly. Here's my Cdn profile, which has a single endpoint, and we can see that it's running. And here's my host name, and we can see that the origin is actually the URL for the blob storage. But now I should be able to actually navigate to davepaquetteblog.azurenet, and it gives me a 404 for now. It does take a little while for the content of from blob storage to actually propagate out to the CDN endpoints. So as it says here, you should check back in a few minutes. So we're just going to go ahead and wait a few minutes and then check back. There we go. It's starting to come through now. There we go. So we didn't even have to wait a few minutes. It was a little bit quicker than that. But we can see that things are still propagating through, I believe. We'll just let it sit, but we have at least a site here that's working, being delivered through the CDN. So next step, if we go back to my handy dandy instructions, is we have a couple endpoint rules that we want to create. The second one is here that I had listed is more if you're deploying a single page application, like something that was built in Vue or React or Angular. And that's just one to rewrite, make sure that we're returning the index HTML if somebody navigates to one of your SPA routes directly. But that's not really important here. But what we do want to do is create a rule here that just automatically redirects people to HTTPS. So that's one that we definitely want, because I don't want people on the site coming in HTTP. And that's something that I actually had on my web.config originally, I believe. Yeah, I had a redirect rule here that was forcing people over to HTTPS if they came in on HTTP. We can do that through the CDN now. We won't need that redirect rule here. So again, I'm going to paste this into Notepad first. And I'm adding the rule to Dave Paquette blog. Here's the name of my endpoint and profile. That should be it. So we're just adding that rule. We're saying the rule name is enforce HTTPS. Order just means where it is in the list of rules in terms of how they get evaluated. So this is going to be the first one. It's URL redirect is the type of rule, and found being the type of redirect, the redirect code that it's going to return. And we're redirecting to HTTPS if the request scheme is HTTP. So I should be able to just add that here. And it looks like that gave me an error. Following arguments are required. Try that again. I think I added a space and I missed it. I didn't. Yeah, there we go. Let's see if more of this stuff is propagated through now. Yep. That's annoying. Oh, I think I know what that is. I'm just missing a setting that is local on my laptop somewhere. So just in a different room. Like I said, I'll fix that later. Okay, if we go look at, just to show you what these rules look like, if we go to the rules engine, on the CDN endpoint. Now we can see here that if request protocol equals HTTP, then redirect them to HTTPS. So that's all that was doing. And that's just, again, making sure if somebody comes into HTTP, this might not apply right away because it could, again, take a few minutes for that to propagate out. Yeah. So just that rule hasn't propagated out everywhere yet, but eventually it will work and it will redirect me to HTTPS. Oh, actually, I lied. So we have that rule set up, but I think there's one other setting that maybe I needed to change on this endpoint. Because, oh no, protocols HTTP and HTTPS. Interesting. I wonder if it's the possibly this guy here doesn't allow HTTP. And I'm actually not sure where that gets set up. Possibly on the container. No. Thought there was a setting. Interesting. Oh, now it's working. So it was just a matter of it not having propagated through yet. Fun stuff with eventual consistency. Okay, next piece is to set up my custom domain. So I'm actually going to have to go on a different monitor here and just log into my DNS, just so that we can get set up with this. So bear with me for 1 second while I log in. Okay, so a couple of things that we need to do. I'm on Namecheap is who I use for as my registrar for domain names, and I'm also using just their DNS. So one of the things that we need to do to get this working, I'm not going to do the official cutover yet. Normally what I would do is I would set a CNAME record for www to point to this URL here, the CDN endpoint URL. I don't actually want to do that yet, but I still want to set up my custom domain to make sure everything's up and running at the point when I want to do the cutover. So there's another way to do to add your custom domain and have that come through. So if we flip over to our endpoint here, go to custom domains, I go to add. What I want to do here is do www.davepaquette.com, and that's going to fail because it's unable to verify. It's expecting that CNAME record, and it's not there. So there's another way to do it. What's this automation options? Nope, that's not the thing I was looking for. So going back to custom domains, it is, I believe it's called CDN verify is the CNAME I can do. Yeah, so I'm going to do, I'm going to create a CNAME here called cdnverify.www.davepaquette.com. And it's going to point to cdn verify and then my Azure Edge URL. So flipping back over here. So my custom domain, or rather back to Namecheap first. I'm going to add a new record here, type CNAME. Host is going to be cdnverify.www. Is that right? Yes. I think so. And then it's going to be cdnverify.davepaquetteblog.azureedge.net. I think that's the magic ticket that I'm looking for. Oh, cdn verify dot save change. Okay, so in the Azure portal here to at least verify that I own that custom domain. Check mark, add. So again, I'm not actually going to route traffic here yet, but I'm hoping to get as much of everything set up as possible. So, oh. Could not create CDN custom domain. Well, that's sad. Oh no, that's an old error. Still creating it. That was from before when I didn't have the record yet. So what we want to do after this is we want to set up an Azure Managed certificate for www.davepaquette.com so that I never have to worry about certificates again and certificates expiring. So over on App Service, I'm using Let's Encrypt for this, but I want to get away from doing that because while it works, it tends to fail on the renewal every once in a while, and then I don't know until it's too late, or until I get a last-minute email from Let's Encrypt telling me that my certificate's expiring. So this would be much better if we could just rely on the Azure services to take care of it for me. Wonder if we can look at those pages that didn't work, which was, I guess, all of them, and figure out why they're not working while we wait. That actually looks okay. I think. Wonder then why. These are wrong. Error at line 43, column 8. Opening and ending tag mismatch. It doesn't look like the code I have here. Line 43. Super weird. I'll figure that out offline. This usually does not take so long to create a custom domain. It's typically a very fast operation, actually. It actually looks like it might be stuck. So I think what we might do is just pause here, and we'll come back another day and see if we can finish this up once I get my... So offline, I'll try to fix the generation of my blog on this machine so that it generates the output properly. And then we can take it from there, pick up on creating the custom domain and enabling HTTPS on there, setting up the Azure Managed Certificate, and if I can get that blog output generating properly, then we can actually go and cut everything over in the next time I do this. So I will call it a night because it's been a long day here for me. I don't really feel like sitting here and waiting for Azure to finish something that looks like it should be done. So we'll catch you next time. Thanks for joining. Bye.